psychological insight into an amnesiac and whether he did or didn't commit a murder, but narrative-wise the idea changed completely.
As a group, we decided it would be wise to hand out questionnaires to our target audience to see what their beliefs were on short films and feature length. And the results we got back were quite interesting, as we could see that people would much rather sit through and watch a feature-length film because they could connect and see how the story developed. And so from this we could see that our story and our character needed to be quite diverse and in a way complex, so that the audience would stay gripped and would want to see how the story progressed over the time.
Some of the audience expressed concerns about the differentiation between what was real and what was a memory sequence, because in a 5-minute film, if we were going to cross-cut, they think it would be too convoluted to constantly be switching back and forth, and they might lose sense of where they were supposed to be at any given time. So we took that on board and decided to cut the narrative down the middle into 2 halves. The first half is from the perspective of the amnesiac, and the second half is from the perspective of someone else who is in real time, so their version of the story is completely true. And you get to compare that with the amnesiac story and see how distorted his reality is in comparison to what's actually happening.
So our initial idea was to have our protagonist in a therapist session where the therapist plucks his mind basically as he puts him under hypnosis, and as we delve forth into the film, the therapist starts to realise that his patient is a sociopath and a serial killer. But we've completely changed our idea. It's completely opposite now. We ended up making our protagonist completely innocent, and he has a clear motive to kill someone, but he just doesn't have the memory to remember.
We decided to interview some students who hadn't participated in media courses to see what their opinions and beliefs were on the aesthetics of our film. So from this we showed them a series of clips from films such as The Godfather, Seven and Gravity to show how the lighting and visuals can really affect a person's opinion on the genre. From this we learned that our lighting and the daytime sort of natural up-to-date shots of our film had to be unsaturated, drained and cold. So we used a nice undertone of greens and blues to really darken and, in a way, simplify the colours. And from that, the character was born.
There were constant amendments being made to the script so that every single crinkle had been ironed out before a camera ever came out of its box. One thing that was raised in audience research was how sympathetically we were going to portray the main character. I wrote him with the idea in mind that he was the sort of guy who would think about killing someone but he would never actually commit, and what the narrative does is it puts him in a position where he thinks he has committed a murder, but because of his condition he's spared no development or any further understanding of himself.
A very early draft of the poster, which simply showed the concept, was shown to a group of people who all said that they liked the idea and that immediately they could tell that it was a psychological thriller. The poster went through a very heavy transformation, both technically and creatively, as we ended up vouching for a completely different idea. Our initial idea was to have a brain in the middle of the poster with labels coming out of it, to kind of show his criminal mind. But now our idea was to have a portrait of the protagonist in a kind of a ghostly image to not only tell the audience that this is a psychological thriller, but also to tell them that eventually we will see through his facade that he's unknowingly creating.
You aim to make your script solid and don't want to make any changes, but you can't help but making changes throughout the film. But I thought what was important was that we all kept the theme the same as it should always be, and that our character Sam was the aggressor as well as the victim. And I think we highlighted that very well with the 2 different sort of, I guess, sides and worlds to the story. And I think no matter how deep you go, there's a new layer that forms every time.